Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna and welcome to all the devotees online. Thank you very much for your kind association. As we continue associating with Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2, Chapter 2, verses 33 to 37. We're going to be completing this chapter today. The Lord in the Heart. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Jivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Saptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Ti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Pastatadistarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarva Shastra Piyusha Sarva Vedeka Satpala Sarva Siddhantaratnadya Sarva Lokayatri Prada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavato Prabhu Kalidvando Didaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churn from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, O most prominent transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you are enriched with the jewels of all spiritual philosophical conclusions, O you grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O light breath of the Vaishnava devotees, O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna who has returned amongst us. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshasharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, offer respectful obeisance unto you. By reading you one attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madeka Bandhu Mad Sangim Mad Guru Mad Mahadana Mad Nishtaraka Mad Bhagya Munananda Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. Asadu sadhu tadayina tini chachataraka hanamunchakata chinmam premna ritkatayospura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O giver of saintliness to the unsaintly, O giver of saintliness to the unsaintly, uplifter of very fallen, please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest in my heart and my throat, accompany my pure love of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Janmadyasya Yatonvayari Taratas Chartes Swabhigna Swarat, Tene Brahma Hedayadi Kavaye Muyanti Yatsuraya, Tejo Vari Mradam Yatha Vinimayo Yatrati Sargom Mrsha, Damna Swena Sada Nirastakvakam Satyam Param Dhimai. O my Lord, Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisance to you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primal cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, and destructions of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed in delusion as one is bewildered by the illusory representation of what is seen in fire, land, seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him. Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in transcendental abode, which is forever free from illusory representation of the material world, I meditate upon him, for he is that. Pranalpaisha Sabya Kalavasmin Yuge Jana Manda Subanda Madayo Manda Bhagyupadrita. O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, men but short lives, they're quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Narayan Namaskritya Narachevam Narothamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisance unto the personality of God in Narayan. unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Shivvyasa, the author. Savai Pumsa Parodharmo Yato Bhaktira Adokshaje Aitika Pratyata Yatma Suprasidati. The supreme occupation, dharma for all humanity, is that by which man can attain to loving devotional service of the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated, uninterrupted, to completely satisfy the soul. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatrisavaragyam Jnanam Chayad Ahoitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of God as Shri Krishna, one immediately acquires causes, knowledge, and detachment from the world. Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam yat gnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentals who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman Paramatma Bhagavan. Shri Shri Shoshadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahatsavaya Vipra Punyatirtha Nishevana. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees completely free from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shrimutam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ryadantastoya Badrani Vidu Noti Shurit Satam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of true devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtues when properly heard and chanted. Nastaprayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatu Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavanin Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in the classes of the Bhagavatam and running of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Etavan Sankhya Yoga Bhyam Swadharmam Parinishtaya Janmalabha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smriti. The highest perfection of human life achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic power, or by perfect discharge of occupational duties to remember the personal Godhead at the end of Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We continue with Bhagavatam based on the teaching of Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Hare Krishna and welcome again. Let us recap any specific points and feedback from last week's session, chapter 2, verses 22 to 32. Anything that caught your attention, anything that you decided to memorize, that you thought was very interesting, please share that in the chat. And while you are typing, we will cover some statements from Srila Prabhupada related to last week's session. The prime inclination of the materialistic mind is to lord it over the material world, and all the siddhis mentioned above are features of domination over the world. The devotees of the Lord are not ambitious to dominate a false and temporary phenomenon. On the contrary, a devotee wants to dominate the supreme, on the contrary, a devotee wants to be dominated by the supreme predominator, Lord. A desire to serve the Lord, the supreme predominator, is spiritual or transcendental, and one has to attain this purification of mind and senses to get admission into the spiritual kingdom. So Prabhupada's warning, giving a warning and a goal. The warning is we need to move away from dominating the material world, becoming the lords of material energy, trying to control, trying to exploit. And we want to come under the domination of the supreme predominator, Krishna. And when we come under the supreme predominator, Krishna, that is not an exploitative relationship. Krishna never exploits those who surrender to him. Krishna never exploits anyone. Krishna is the embodiment of kindness, embodiment of love. And anyone who surrenders, they experience that loving hand of Krishna. So we want to come into Krishna's jurisdiction of control. And therefore, in order to transition from being the Lord to being a servant, because of our psyche has been conditioned that way over lifetimes, billions and trillions of lifetimes. So therefore, in order to come to that transition, we need to start desiring to be a servant of the Lord. We want to become a servant of the Lord, servant of the devotees. So this attitude of service, servant has to be there. And that desire is not material, that desire is spiritual. So as we transition more and more mind, body, and words to this attitude of service, then Prabhupada says that this transformation, this purification of mind and senses, this is really what allows us to be admitted into the spiritual kingdom. The spiritual world is a world of service. So unless and until we do not develop the attitude of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is absolutely no question of entering the spiritual world. Absolutely no question. You find so many people, they may be very eloquent, they may be very famous, they may be very expert in different arts and sciences, they may have mystic powers, so many things. They may even be apparently on the spiritual path. But without the full purification of one's identity to be an eternal servant of Krishna, we cannot enter the kingdom of God. Because then you're going to be a disturbance. You will not fit. You do not fit in there. So Prabhupada, in his purports, is illuminating very clearly what attitude, what culture, what mindset we need to cultivate. Madhacharya says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, pure consciousness means I have understood and realized that I am the eternal servant of Krishna. Yes, as Prabhupada is also highlighting in the specific purport. This is what pure consciousness, Krishna consciousness means. Now, one may not realize this completely, but that does not stop one from rendering service. See, I may not be a qualified policeman, but it never stops me to engage in activities of a policeman. I could assist a policeman, I could help, in different ways in a police department. I could, engage in activities related to a policeman. Similarly, I may not be fully realized that I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, but that does not stop anyone from engaging in the service of Krishna. I will give you a simple example. The first engagement is chanting the holy names of Krishna. You find there are those who are repulsed just by the concept of chanting God's names. You tell them chant God's names, like, really? What? No, man. We want to do silent meditation. Or we want to chant some concocted name, mantra, engage in some form of meditation that's concocted. Why? Because of the envy that is deeply rooted against the Supreme Lord and service to the Supreme Lord. So we can easily measure our progress in terms of, am I embracing service to the Supreme Lord in different ways, even though I am not fully a self-realized soul? Mother Les says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Bhakti Kripa is like a spiritual umbilical cord, which connects each one of us to the lotus feet of the Lord. To protect this Kripa, we must always render loving service without offense, or else risk cutting the Bhakti Kripa. Yes, Prabhupada beautifully shares how this seed of this bhakti kripa is sown, and then we water it with hearing and chanting. And that's why hearing and chanting is key for spiritual growth. Even though we spoke about cultivating a service attitude and serving, sometimes devotees engage in so much service at the cost of sufficient hearing and chanting. And Srila Prabhupada warns us that is dangerous. That is dangerous. So yes, we want to cultivate an attitude of service. Yes, we want to engage in service, but do not forget, and yes, we want to engage in practical service, but do not forget the most important of all services, and that is hearing and chanting. If one engages in practical service, but do not hear sufficiently, then this bhakti kripa does not mature. In fact, what may happen is that service slowly becomes mechanical. That service starts to dry up. We start to see the service as a burden. We start to criticize in service. We start to lose taste in service. We start to create offenses. So the aspect that we meant to master becomes itself an obstacle if we do not sufficiently hear and chant the glories of Krishna. Otherwise, why would Srila Prabhupada even spend so much time giving so much material to hear and chant? He could have just given one book and said, this is sufficient. Now just engage as many hours as possible in practical service, but he didn't do that. He gave us 80 volumes, over 80 volumes of content to hear and chant about. Why? Because without this nourishment, without this Krishna Katha, without this exposure, that creeper does not grow. The water that waters that creeper, Shravanadi Jal, Shravanadi Jal, the water that goes into your ears, that is what waters the creeper. So therefore, regularly hearing and chanting is a must. Otherwise, we will risk destroying this bhakti kripa that, or bhakti lata beach that we have received. Prabhupada then says, by the strength of devotional service, austerity, mystic powers, and transcendental knowledge, everyone can move like Narad Muni or Durasa Muni. The perfection that all previous devotees, acharyas, and souls have attained can be attained even in Kali Yuga. It's not only for specific souls that can attain perfection, but in those that have attained perfection have put in the effort. They've put in the time, the energy, the resources to achieve the result. In Kali Yuga, we want everything instant. Instant sense gratification, instant self-realization. Unfortunately, instant self-realization doesn't exist. One has to put effort, one has to put time. And the reason why instant self-realization doesn't exist, because if it did exist, you would take it very, very cheaply. Easy come, easy go. So if something comes very easy, then you don't really value it. But if painstakingly you had to put time and effort and energy and consistency and dedication, commitment, then you value that. So spiritual life is not a click of a button, click of a switch. No, it is a cultivation. Anushilanam. Anushilanam means cultivation. You have to cultivate, just like you cultivate a plant. It takes time. It takes years. So we have to cultivate our devotional service. It'll take years. And because it'll take years, we need to be prepared. We need to prepare for those years. We are here for a marathon, a lifetime marathon. Not a sprint, not a quick fix. And while we on this marathon, there will be many obstacles on the path to derail you, to dampen your spirits, to distract you, to give you a reason to stop. At the same time, there are also motivating factors that is there to allow you to continue on this path. Srila Prabhupada's books are very powerful motivating factor. When we associate with Srila Prabhupada's books, he reminds us again and again and again and again and again that the dangers and why we should continue on this path. Prabhupada then writes, purport to 27, the Vedic wisdom guides us to understanding our relationship with the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna and to act accordingly in order to achieve the desired result of returning home back to God. But materialistic men do not understand this. They want to make a plan to become happy in a place where there is no happiness. For false happiness, they try to reach other planets, either by Vedic rituals or by spacecraft. But they should know for certain that any amount of materialistic adjustment for becoming happy in a place which is meant for distress cannot benefit misguided men, because after all, the whole universe will with all its paraphernalia will come to an end after a certain period. Then all plans of materialistic happiness will automatically come to an end. The intelligent person therefore makes a plan to return home back to Godhead. Such an intelligent person surpasses all the pangs of material existence, like birth, death, disease, and old age. Prabhupada's highlighting his foresight in this paragraph. Prabhupada is looking beyond what, just the temporary arrangements. Yes, you may create such amazing facility for apparent happiness. But either you're going to come to an end, because death is going to be there, or the material world is going to come to an end. Either one, it's going to end. So if that is the nature of our circumstance for happiness, then that is not what the soul is seeking. The soul is seeking for permanent happiness. So Prabhupada is highlighting the pathway to perfect happiness, to permanent happiness, to real happiness, not the temporary promises that are there in the material world. So that does not mean we should not be comfortable in the material world. We want to be as comfortable as possible, but for the purpose of returning back to Godhead, for the purpose of perfecting our Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, that comfort is a total waste of time. All the energy, all the resource, all the time that you put into acquiring those comforts is basically zero. It's basically a waste of time. But if all that energy is used and all that resource is used to achieve the goal, the ultimate goal of understanding our relationship, of cultivating our relationship, and of perfecting our relation with Krishna, then our life is perfect and sublime. So I'm going to go through a few slides just to recap what we've covered, there were different aspects of the yogic system, of the universal planetary system, of how the yogis go from one planet to another, piercing the universe, etc. And I thought I'll just share a little more information and slides to give us a little more content in those subjects. At the same time, we're not going to go into the details of this. Different sections, these will come up, and some of the content maybe outside these sessions. So the Ashtanga yogi, his focus is to control the life airs, and especially to control the energy that's there in the spine, which is at the base, mainly called the kundali, and to raise that through the different energy centers, right from the lower root chakra, Muladhara chakra, right up to the top crown chakra, Sahasrara chakra. And these energy centers, which are in the spinal cord, they are very powerful centers which are also related to different aspects of the body. For example, if one of the chakras, let's say the energy of that chakra becomes weakened or gets blocked, then that also impacts the organs around that energy center, and you can get diseased. There are different chakras which then impacts different states of beings. And certain methodologies or traditions are there that study science behind all these different chakras, but still they study the science of these chakras and energy centers with the objective of becoming lords and masters. And as the different chakras are pierced, you get different powers. Therefore, our goal is not to master these chakras. The goal is not the chakras. There is only one goal, and that is Krishna. Yogis specifically, right, they know that they need to raise this energy through the chakras, and it's not easy. Majority of people in this world, their energy is at the lower, two chakras. So their focus is a lot on, survival, on safety, on comfort, on sense gratification. It's all based in that area. As one evolves higher and higher, and as the energy of, or let's say you open up higher and higher chakras, then you become more and more refined as a person. The beauty of Krishna consciousness is that this all is done automatically without you even knowing. I normally give this incident where we went to a group of open-minded souls in the north, and they're into all these different alternative types of methodologies and yoga and chakras. And so we went to present Krishna consciousness to them. So we did a small talk in a kirtan and served prasad. And while in the kirtan, we started the kirtan, did a small kirtan, then I finished the kirtan, and we were serving prasad. So while I was serving prasad, one gentleman was there who was able to read chakras. He was able to see. because souls that have a higher level of consciousness can perceive greater perspective of nature. It's like we call them psychic abilities. So he was able to see beyond just matter. And I was serving, so he says, it was amazing. I said, what was amazing? As I was serving Prasad, he was just sharing his realization. He says, I noticed all your lower chakras were all closed and your higher chakras were open. So now what I know about open and closing of chakras is not our focus. We're just chanting Hare Krishna. So when he mentioned that, I said, can you explain more? What do you mean? Because I was also curious. I can't see my chakras. So, but I know what Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said, for example, in Kirtan, the eightfold yoga system is already included. You get the benefit of that in Kirtan. So then I asked him, what do you mean? So he started explaining. He said, actually, yogis, and I'm on this path of yoga, the yogis, they strive for years and years to control and close the lower chakras, but they get stuck there. And generally the lower chakras, because it's focused on gross sense gratification, in terms of sexual desires, etc., people get caught in there. It's very difficult to rise, especially without param drishta nivartate, especially without a higher taste. It's very mechanical, very difficult. He says, but I noticed that for your chakras was like closed. There was no problem. So then I said, yeah, it's not me. It's basically the chanting of God's names. So like that, Sukadeva Goswami is sharing the mechanical process to become Krishna conscious, go back home. It is not, as Prabhupada described in the purport, it is not practical for Kali Yuga, for Kali Yuga souls. For us, chanting the holy names is the process. The different purports that we covered was talking about the universal structure and how the yogi penetrates through different coverings and the size of the different coverings. So this is Durgam, very difficult to come out because the material world is under the jurisdiction of Mother Durga. She's a prison warden. And this material world is a prison. Everybody is encased. And the human body or the material body is our prison suit. So if you see the Garbha ocean, and then the different planetary systems or planets are there, 14 planetary systems, major planetary systems, and then many others, minor. And what's interesting specifically here is the 7 different layers. The last one is obviously, this one is said to be the 8th, but that's just the shell. So 7 main layers that Prabhupada talked about: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Those are the 5 material elements that form a layer each. And then ego and Mahatattva, false ego and Mahatattva. So these are the different layers of the universe. And the yogi needs to penetrate through all these. Now, what's interesting is that each layer is 10 times larger than the previous layer. So the universe is 4 billion miles in diameter. So I need to just look at this. I'll need to review this calculation because here it says 4 million miles. I think it's in billion diameter. But either way, let's just look at, in terms of the calculation, if we take the Earth layer as 4 million miles, 10 times that is 40 million. Then 10 times that, 400 million. Then 4 billion, then 40 billion, 400 billion, 4 trillion, 40 trillion. No matter what the calculation is, it is humongous. The wall, even if you take the last wall of 4 trillion miles, then that is huge. That is huge. So it's not easy to just escape the universal structure. Okay, it is extremely, or rather you could say it's impossible. Now, if one surrenders to Krishna, then very quickly one can get out. No difficulty, no problem at all. And if one takes the mechanical process, then one needs to basically go from using mechanical process, one needs to rise above using all the, the mechanical process to all the different planets, right to Satyaloka, then from Satyaloka, then one escapes. So this picture was just to show the layers: earth, water, fire, air, ether, ego, and Mahatattva. So this is just a picture showing the different planets. We have Earth planet, or Jambudvip. This is the earthly realm, or Bhuloka. So you get Bhur, Bhuha, and Swaha. Bhuloka, Burloka, and Swaha. Earthly realm, the lower hellish levels or hellish planets, and heavenly planets, upper planets. What we know as the earthly realm is just like Earth planet. It's not just Earth planet. There's a whole mandala. There's a whole variegated realm. For example, there are different oceans that make up this level. We know the fresh water, we know the saltwater ocean, and there's the saltwater ocean is there. Then you got the milk ocean, you got the freshwater ocean, you got the ocean of wine, the ocean of curd, ocean of ghee, ocean of sugarcane syrup. So yes, the creation is very extraordinary. Then Prabhupada talked about the pole star, and the pole star, which is Dhruvaloka. This is like the pivot, and all the other stars, they are connected to Dhruvaloka with ropes of air called Pravaha. And there's like a shape of a dolphin that's created. So this structure of the pivot and the chandelier, Prabhupada described this, and this is what they're going to also create in the Vedic planetarium. So here you can see, again, there's Dhruvaloka, all the different stars. You got your different main planets that are there. And then you also have the whole universe on top of Anantashesh. And Anantashesh is basically residing on Kurma. And then there's elephants also that's holding up. And yeah, it's a very interesting structure. Not like a big bang and then, things are created. No, it's very variegated, and there's a system's whole structure is there. Okay, so that's basically the universe. And then I'm going to just quickly go through a few slides. You can obviously go and review the video again. In terms of comparing modern astronomy to Vedic cosmology. The Vedic cosmology explains many universal facts more clearly than modern astronomy. And here there are 18 points which can be explained here clearly by Vedic cosmology based on Srimad Bhagavatam, Surya Siddhanta, and 17 other Puranas. Whereas you find in modern astronomy, it's very subjective and very limited because they're using their own material senses, which are limited. And then, as they get more sophisticated technology and able to see further, then that changes and they get more information, very limited. And we don't suggest that. We basically accept Bhagavatam, we accept the Vedas. And this way, that's why when Prabhupada said the research is already done, we don't need to research. Whatever we know, whatever we want to know, about creation is already there in the Vedas. We just need to access it. But why wouldn't people access it when the information is already there? Who can tell us in the chat? Why wouldn't people access knowledge that is already there in the Vedas? Like, for example, the size of the universe, the number of other universes that are there. All this information is already there in the Vedas. Why wouldn't people access that knowledge? Give us one reason why you think people would not access this knowledge. Because you can save. I mean, they spend billions of dollars for research, for development. That money can be redirected in so many other ways. So why do you think they don't accept, don't believe in the Supreme Lord or power? Yes. No faith? Yes. They want credit and name and fame? Yes. And if you had to summarize all this in one word, give me one word. Because it comes from a religious perspective and not scientific. Good. So give me one word that summarizes everything you've mentioned. Envy. Yes. Shamananda Prabhu says envy. Correct. Faithlessness. It's envy. See, it's just a different manifestation of envy of God. Krishna is giving us the information, and because I envy Krishna, I don't want anything to do with Krishna. I would rather spend and waste time on my own and not even get the end result, but I would never accept what Krishna has given because I envy him. So envy manifests in many, many, many different ways. So let's just quickly go through this. I'll just do one or two and then just mention these aspects, and you can obviously go through on your own. So the first one, origin of the universe. There are 13 plus theories available on hit and trial methods of how this universe manifested, right? Big Bang, steady state, multiverse, all different speculative theories. Bhagavatam, only one fact available with detailed description in all the 18 Puranas of how creation manifested. We're going to cover this in the 3rd canto. Very clear how creation manifested, very systematic. Brahma Samhita describes very detailed of how creation is manifested. Now, yes, when we go through and we hear, for example, Mahavishnu, as he's breathing, from his pores, universes are coming out. Like, you'll be thinking, really? Like, what? Yes. Someone will say, but I can't believe that. Well, you believing in the Big Bang? You believing in the Big Bang? Well, if you believe in the Big Bang, then you can believe in this aspect also. So it's not that people don't have, they can't place their faith in these things. It's just that they decide to place their faith in the wrong place. Now, we want to place our faith in Krishna. The diameter of the universe, obviously speculative, they give different answers according to their instruments, 93 billion light years. And the Bhagavatam is giving it the diameter of the universe, 6.4 billion miles. And this is even the smallest universe, etc. So like that, current age of the universe, they say it's 13.8 billion Earth years. Well, how did you calculate that? How did you, how can you scientifically prove 13.8 billion years of the current universe? You have no instruments. You can't validate. It's all speculative. But from the Vedic system, very scientifically, we can understand, and we'll show you how that is calculated. The current universe, one day of Brahma is 4.32 billion years. So right now, we've gone through 155 trillion Earth years, which is basically 50 years of Lord Brahma, half his age. And still, he has to continue living another 50 years. So therefore, the next 0.5 total age of the current of our universe is 311 trillion Earth years. From scientific perspective or from modern astronomy, there's no way they can know. Then you look at the number of suns in our universe, number of moons in our universe, size of the Earth in diameter. Now, if you look at the size of Earth in diameter, it's interesting. From modern astronomy, they've calculated 12,742 kilometers. And from the Bhagavatam, 12,800 kilometers. Spot on, not bad, very good. So yes, it's not like they don't know anything. No, according to the instruments and according to availability, they may be able to measure. So yes, they can somehow measure the Earth planet. And it matches exactly to the Bhagavatam. So now someone would have, to think, okay, hold on. How did the Bhagavatam or how did the Vedas come to 12,800 kilometers? And if the Vedas are ancient, then how did they measure this in the ancient times? See, that's what needs to trigger. That's what they need to think. Because the way the Vedic knowledge was given was not through experiment, it was descending. So Krishna is telling us, this is the size of the Earth planet. Okay, done. He's the creator. And then science will come and it'll try to measure, and well, they're a few kilometers short, but very, very close. Then universe management, how the universe is managed. They have no clue. They say automatic, everything happens by chance. Nobody's behind this management. And the Vedas, they talk about the demigods, the different planetary systems. There's a universe management team. The location of controlling authority within the universe. There's the position and functioning of the pole star. They know the pole star is there. They know it's fixed. But they don't know what is the function behind it. They only know that it's brilliant, it's fixed, so we can use it for navigation. But why is it fixed? Who fixed it? If there was a Big Bang, how did the Big Bang cause all the other stars to move, but the pole star to stay fixed? Logic doesn't tell us. But we find that from the Vedic understanding, we know the pole star is there, it's fixed. Krishna made that arrangement. Why? For different reasons. Then 13, living beings on different planets and their communication. The Vedic cosmology discusses so much in detail. Transportation and communication system. The Vedic cosmology covers details and even more subtle form of communication. As Prabhupada writes, Narad Muni, Durvas Muni, they could travel, they could fly. Movement of the sun, then the movement of the moon, the Milky Way. So they can see the Milky Way, and they may give you some understanding, but the Milky Way is very clearly described in the Vedic scriptures. According to Vedic Shastra, Milky Way is known as Akash Ganga. Means the Ganga, means the Ganges river of the sky. Its form forms the abdomen of the dolphin. So that's the Milky Way. And then 18 is very interesting. The aurora, northern light. So from the modern perspective, they say this is caused when the electrons reach Earth's thin upper atmosphere. They collide with nitrogen and oxygen molecules, sending them into an excited state. Excited electrons eventually come down and release light, which is what we see as aurora. Now, according to the Vedic scriptures, aurora is basically the thread of air called pravaha, which connects the planets, sun, moon, stars, saptarishis, with the pole star, and the pole star rotates, and these heavenly bodies in the universe. So that what they're seeing is really the threads of air that's connecting all the different stars. So in this way, the Vedic scriptures give clarity of what we see in this world. Here is a systematic breakdown of time. And we're going to go, this will be discussed in the future cantos of how time is originated from the atom. Paramanu is the ultimate material particle, the smallest atom, which constitutes the basic building blocks of material universe. And Paramanu color is the time required for the sun to pass one Paramanu. So very, 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 very tiny. And if we go from the bottom, 2 Paramanu equals 1 Anu. Then 2 Anus equals Trisharenu. And then 3 Trisharenu is 3 2. Like that, multiples and proportions. And you'll see as it goes right up to 15 Lagus, which is 24 minutes. Then 2 Nadika, which is 48 minutes, which is called 1 Muhurta. Then 30 Muhurtas is 1 day. Then 1 year. Then 1 Kali Yuga. Then 1 Dwapara Yuga. 1 Tetra Yuga. 1 Satya Yuga. And in this way, we come to the lifetime of Brahma. So you can see time is very systematically created and designed from the atom. And this we'll cover in the Bhagavatam as well. Then we also talked about, in the previous session, Prabhupada talked about the dissolution, how the yogis, they're able to see the fire created at the bottom of the universe, and then they know that, okay, the universe is getting destroyed, so then they can traverse to Brahma's low planet, and then from there leave. So there are 4 categories of universal annihilation discussed in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam. There's Nityam, there's Nitya, there's Naimitika, there's Prakrita, and there's Atyantika. So there's, at every moment, time invisibly transforms the body of all created beings and all other manifestations of matter. This process of transformation causes the living entity to undergo the constant annihilation of birth and death. This is called Nitya, or constant annihilation. That's one form of annihilation that everyone and everything is influenced by. Time destroys at every moment. Then, Naimitika, 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas constitute 1 day of Brahma. And each day of Brahma, called a kalpa, contains within it the lifetimes of 14 manus. The duration of Brahma's night is the same as that of the day. During his night, Brahma sleeps, and the 3 planetary systems meet destructions. This is Naimitika, or occasional annihilation. So the end of Brahma's day is when night starts, then there's destruction, Brahma wakes up, then Brahma recreates, and the cycle continues. Then there is Prakrita. When Brahma's life span of 100 years is finished, there occurs the Prakrita, or total material annihilation. That was the last covering that was there. So when the whole universe is now annihilated. At that time, the 7 elements of material nature, beginning with the Mahatattva and the entire universe egg composed of them, are destroyed. Right? So that eggshell that comes out from our Vishnu's body, that whole eggshell is destroyed. And then Atyantika, when a person achieves knowledge of the absolute, he understands factual reality. He perceives the entire created universe as separate from the absolute and therefore unreal. This is called Atyantika, or final annihilation or liberation. Final is false ego through bhakti. So as long as one is under the false ego and bound, one is going to experience the first three or the top three forms of annihilation. When one becomes liberated, now there is no form of destruction. That is how one experiences eternality. This is just a chart showing the process that was now discussed. And we're just summarizing now before we conclude this chapter. So the Ashtanga Yoga process starts with yama, niyama, do's and don'ts, then asanas, different bodily postures, then pranayama, breathing exercise, pratyahara, withdrawing one's senses. Now, at the point of pratyahara, you can have desire. So if you have no desire, then you are detached yogi. If you have desire, then you're an attached yogi. So you can see here, nobody can escape from desire. It's gonna face you sooner or later, even in spiritual life. You cannot just, put desire under the carpet and think and practice spiritual life and think nothing's gonna happen. No, we need to be aware of our desires. They can be obstacles. So the yogi also, he has to face. If he has a desire, then he has to go through the process of dharanashya, which is the Virat Rupa. So if he goes, then yes, he's got desire, and then he's going to now go through the process that were described. Step by step, he has to go from one planet to another. And as he's evolving, he's destroying his desires, and he can now elevate himself. Very, very gradual. If the detached yogi, he's going to now focus on the Paramatma. So Sukadeva Goswami spoke about the yogi focusing on the Virat Rupa, and then he spoke about the advanced yogi focusing on the Paramatma. So the yogi will focus on the Paramatma, and he'll then meditate on the Paramatma, the different features that Sukadeva Goswami described. He will then achieve Samadhi, and then Brahman realization. Right? And in this way, he can achieve perfection. So this is the mechanical process which is described. And the reason why, as we mentioned, the process are there is because there are souls who resonate with this. And therefore, Krishna has given. Everything that Krishna has given in the Vedas is there for every type of living being that exists. There'll be some process that they will resonate with. Now, they may resonate with the process, but they may not have the eligibility to perfect that process. Just like in Kali Yuga, as souls fall from other dimensions into Kali Yuga, depending from where they were in the past life, these things may resonate with them. This feels good, this feels right. But because they're in Kali Yuga, the environment does not allow them to perfect that process. Therefore, now we're going to cover the concluding chapter, concluding verses, where Sukadeva Goswami, he spoke about the Lord in the heart, and he described this process in detail. And now, from 33 to 37, sadhana bhakti as the best path. So that's the section we're going to cover. Text 33. Nayato nya shiva panta vishata samshritav iha vasudeva bhagavati bhakti yogo yato bhavet. For those who are wondering, in the material universe, there is no more auspicious means of deliverance than what is aimed at in the direct devotional service of the Lord. So after Sukadeva Goswami describes the path of Ashtanga Yoga, now he concludes this chapter that for those who are wandering in the material universe, note, it's in the material universe. It's not just Earth planet. It's the whole universe. For everyone that's encased, that's trapped, that's imprisoned in this material universe, whether you are elevated in consciousness or degraded in consciousness, it doesn't matter. what is the most auspicious means of deliverance? It is direct devotional service of Lord Krishna. The adjective that's used there is direct. Does that imply that there's indirect? And then it said there's auspicious means of deliverance. Does that mean there's inauspicious means of deliverance? So Prabhupada in his purport expands. As will be clarified in the next verse, devotional service or direct bhakti yoga is the only absolute and auspicious means of deliverance from the grip of material existence. So we need to be convinced. Are we convinced of this? That I'm engaged in devotional service, I'm on this path of bhakti yoga. Firstly, it is direct. Secondly, it's the only absolute and auspicious. Absolute means it is true past, present, and future. It's true for everyone. And it is auspicious. It gives all auspicious results. And there's so many other benefits of bhakti yoga. There are many indirect methods for deliverance from the clutches of material existence. And one of the indirect was what we discussed. But none of them is as easy and auspicious as bhakti yoga. So this is our good fortune. We are on the path that is easy and auspicious. To have both, that which is the most auspicious and easy is very, very difficult to get. That is why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Noma Mahavadanya. He's the most magnanimous personality because he has given us a process of chanting the holy names of Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which is very simple and easy, but at the same time very sublime and auspicious to achieve the result of returning back home. The means of jnana and yoga and other allied disciplines are not independent in delivering a performer. Such activities help one to reach the stage of bhakti yoga after many, many years. In Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it is said that those who are attached to the impersonal feature of the Absolute are liable to many troubles in pursuits of the desired goal. And the empiricist philosophers, searching after the absolute truth, realize the importance of Vasudeva realization as all in all after many, many births. So all other variations, permutations of the other methods which are described in the Vedas, it's not that they won't work. It's just that it'll take a long time, firstly. There will be many difficulties. And you will have to connect to bhakti yoga eventually. Otherwise, they will not be able to give the desired result. As far as yoga systems are concerned, it is also said in Bhagavad Gita 6.47 that amongst the mystics who pursue the absolute truth, the one who is always engaged in the service of the Lord is the greatest of all. And the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita 1866 advises fully surrendering unto the Lord, leaving aside all other engagements or different processes of self-realization and liberation for material bondage. Sarva dharman parityaja. He doesn't say sarva adharman parityaja. He doesn't say abandon all varieties of irreligion. Krishna says give up all forms of dharma. That means all other processes which are described in the Vedas. So it's not wrong, but Krishna is saying you don't need that. We may, due to our past upbringing or due to previous lifetimes, being affiliated with different types of processes and dharmas and systems. When we come to Krishna consciousness, we hear that actually you don't need to continue. You just have to surrender to the Supreme Lord. And when you surrender to the Supreme Lord, as advised by Sri Mahaprabhu, the Yuga avatar, then everything else is included, is given. You don't need to worry about, oh, how can I give up this process that my family tradition has been practicing for lifetimes. Because yes, if you continue, you're going to then continue for lifetimes. But if your goal is to go back to Godhead, then just follow the process that is authorized and given at that time, place, and circumstance. Consider, let's just give a practical example. So if I want to start a business, I can go and set up a brick and mortar supermarket store. Say if I want to sell clothes, I can go and open up a brick and mortar store to sell clothes. I can do that. But according to the time, place, and circumstance, if I want to start up a shop now, I can start up an online shop. I don't need brick and mortar. I don't need a store. I can do one online. I can go to Shopify and create a shopping cart, and then I can load my graphics of all my products, and I can have. Yes, it may not have the realistic, let's say, the impact that people may want to put on the clothes, etc. But just like there's online, there's a shoe shop, a shoe business. You can buy the shoe, you can try the shoe, and if it doesn't work, you return it free of charge. So the point is, according to time, place, and circumstance, you can change according to the current trend. So in this Yuga, Kali Yuga, the trend of perfection has been introduced by the Yuga avatar, Lord Chaitanya. So those who are faithful, they will honor the Yuga avatar. Those who still have envy, they will want to stick on to their process and their method of self-realization. And the Lord is not going to force. The Lord will say, okay, you attach, you carry on. According to your means, you will get the desired result. Krishna is not going to crucify anyone that's not going to follow his process. He will just give you as you sow, so shall you reap. You will get the result. Eventually, sooner or later, you will have to surrender. So Srimad Mahaprabhu has come. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, in so many of his lectures, he would say, those who are Krishna conscious are very, very intelligent. The path of Krishna conscious is not for everyone. It's only for those who are Susu Medasa, only for those who are more intelligent, most intelligent. At the same time, for those who are not most intelligent, we can't condemn them, but we should try to encourage them as best as we can to come to Krishna consciousness. And if they're not, well, no problem. Help them on their path by giving them Krishna Prasad. Feed them. Give them a little dose of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada then continues. And the purport of all Vedic literatures is to induce one to accept the transcendental loving service of the Lord by all means. It's already explained in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, either direct bhakti yoga or the means which ultimately culminate in bhakti yoga without any tinge of fruitive activity constitute the highest form of religion. Everything else is simply a waste of time for the performer. So you find that there are so many systems, but they're all based on fruitive activity. They're all based on I want something. And that want is based on sense gratification. And that sense gratification is based on lording it over material nature. And that lording it over material nature is based on envy. Srila Siddha Swami, and all other acharyas like Jiva Goswami agree that bhakti yoga is not only easy, simple, natural, and free from trouble, but is the only source of happiness for the human beings. Wonderful. Now, someone may say, who are these acharyas? Well, you can go and research all these acharyas, and you will find that they are brilliant. Their mental power was super. They were like superhuman beings. They were exalted personalities, refined in character, purified in heart, elevated in consciousness, realized in what they were practicing. So just from understanding these personalities, we can understand that we're not just following Tom, Dick, and Harry, your layman in the street. We're not even following some great personalities and famous personalities and wealthy personalities. No, we are following refined, exalted, realized souls who have traversed and perfected this path and have given us their conclusion. And what is their conclusion? Bhakti yoga is easy, it is simple, it is natural, it is free from trouble, and is the only source of happiness for the living entity. What else do you want? If I had to tell you, here's a process that's easy, that's simple, it's natural. So it's not complicated and difficult. You have to stand on your head and have to point on the, on a nose, and it's like, no, it's very simple. And it's natural. It's not something that's artificial, which you will have to give up. It's not a superimposition that you will have to give up. It's something that's naturally there already. Therefore, it will resonate very easily, very nicely with you. And it's free from trouble. Trouble that the other processes will give. And most important, because Prabhupada already talked about happiness in this world. And that you won't find happiness in this world. But by applying the process of bhakti yoga, it is the only source of happiness for the human beings. Therefore, Prabhupada says, a devotee is always happy. If you practicing Krishna consciousness and you're not happy, then it either means you're immature in your practice, or if you're practicing for a while and you're still not happy, means there's some defect in your practice. You're doing something that's not healthy. But if you practice it nicely and seriously, as Prabhupada has described, you'll find there's a source of happiness that is there. Some content, you'll feel the contentment, you'll feel the happiness. 34. Bhagavan Brahma Karshnes Kart Sneya Tri Anvikshya Manishaya Tad Adyavasta Kutasto Ratir Atma Yato Bhavet. The great personality, Brahma, with great attention and concentration of mind, studied the Vedas 3 times. And after scrutinizingly examining them, he ascertained that attraction for the Supreme Personality of God as Shri Krishna is the highest perfection of religion. Now, let's just understand this verse. Sukadeva Goswami is saying the great personality Brahma. Now, let's take it in context with our universe. In our universe, Brahma has 4 heads. And everybody else, like us, have 1 head. And even that 1 head may not be working fully. So, Brahma's got 4 heads, and we got 1 head. Who should you follow? The 1-headed or the 4-headed? Madhuri says we have to be careful of that statement, because then they're going to follow Ravana, who's got 10 heads. Those 10 heads of Ravana was his 10 enemies: lust, anger, greed, envy, jealousy, madness, illusion, etc. All the bad qualities. So yes, but in relation to Lord Brahma, who's the greatest personality with 4 heads, he's got quad processor. We got single processor. So therefore, he's got more intelligence than us. He studied not just, once a week, inattentively, casually. No, he studied with great attention and concentration, and he studied the Vedas 3 times. Somebody with 4 heads, with great attention and concentration, who studies the Vedas 3 times, will come to a conclusion, and that conclusion is what we should follow. Nevertheless, says Brahma, the most pious living entity universe. Yes. So, what was his conclusion? That attraction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, is the highest perfection for religion. When we surrender to Krishna, when we become attached to Krishna, we become inclined to serving Krishna, then we achieve the highest perfection. Ramkinkar says, yes, we must follow the 4-headed Lord Brahma, because he's the head of the table, the Sampradaya. Yes, at least in our Sampradaya, he's the head. But what we find is that even the other Sampradayas, they come to the same conclusion. So you'll see in so many ways, Prabhupada is encouraging us in a certain direction. The Acharyas, like Jiva Goswami, are directing us in a certain direction. Sukadev Goswami is directing us in a certain direction. Lord Brahma, the Vedas are directing us in a certain direction. And they all the exact same direction. How much more do we want to hear and to be directed, to be convinced of this? So by now we should be completely convinced that the path that we are on, no matter who and what people say, just like the AI may say something else, and people may say something else. I was busy researching on the golden age for tomorrow's class in Pretoria, and it's interesting that as I was researching, I just by chance got access or got these few videos that were talking about the golden age starting on the 15th of January. I thought, what? What is golden age starting on the 15th of January? It's not according to the Bhagavatam. And then I was listening to a few videos, and it's amazing how complex they talk about the golden age. I heard one person, and he's using so many different jargons and words that, like, his 10 minutes of talk was like, what? So much word jugglery, and it's like, oh, this is like beyond my understanding. And then I say, just see how wonderful Prabhupada's purports, Prabhupada's instruction. Prabhupada's like so simple, it's not using word jugglery. There's so much clarity. It's amazing. So, we have the most simple, most easiest, most natural, and most blissful process. We simply need to surrender. Prabhupada says, Srila Sukadeva Goswami is referring to the highest Vedic authority, Lord Brahma, who is a qualitative incarnation of Godhead. That means he's a Guna avatar. The Vedas were taught to Brahmaji in the beginning of the material creation. Although Brahmaji heard the Vedic instructions directly from the Personality of Godhead, in order to satisfy the inquisitiveness of all prospective students of the Vedas, Brahmaji, just as a scholar, studied the Vedas 3 times, as is generally done by all scholars. He studied with great attention, concentration on the purpose of the Vedas. So it wasn't just 3, it was 4. He heard it first from Krishna and then he studied it. So just consider, we read Prabhupada's books once and we say we're done. We should at least go minimum 3 times. Prabhupada's nectar of devotion should be 7 times. So we should, and the more we study it, the more we become convinced. The more we study, the more we become purified. The more we study, the more we become self-realized. He studied with great attention, concentration on the purpose of the Vedas, and after scrutinizingly examining the whole process, he ascertained that becoming a pure, unalloyed devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, is the topmost perfection of all religious principles. And this is the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita, directly presented by the Personality of Godhead. The Vedic conclusion is thus accepted by all acharyas, and those who are against this conclusion are only Vedavada Arthas, explained in Bhagavad Gita. So you're going to get those who do not accept. It's part of this creation. That's why they're in the material prison. Those who are intelligent will heed the advice. 35. Bhagavan sarva bhuteshu lakshita swa manahari trisher buddhya dir drashta lakshanair anumapakai. The personality of God, Lord Shri Krishna, is in every living being along with the individual soul. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. So now Sukadeva Goswami is just highlighting this position of Krishna. The general argument of common man is that since the Lord is not visible to our eyes, how can one either surrender unto him or render transcendental loving service unto him? Now, please note how Sukadeva Goswami is systematically unfolding and revealing the process, the path of perfection, what is the exact goal, and then he's then going to conclude how to practically engage. So now the question is that, well, okay, I need to develop a relation with Krishna. Great. How? But I can't see him. So that question is getting answered. To such a common man, here is a practical suggestion given by Srila Sukadeva Goswami as to how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception. Actually, the Lord is not perceivable by our present materialized senses, but when one is convinced of the presence of the Lord by a practical service attitude, there is revelation by the Lord's mercy, and such a pure devoted Lord can perceive the Lord's presence always and everywhere. So now, by service attitude, we will get revelation. This was also discussed in the first canto. When Krishna is sufficiently pleased by your service attitude, revelation is there. It's not just by service. It's when Krishna is sufficiently pleased. So I may be rendering service, I'm rendering service, and nothing tangible is happening that I can see. It doesn't mean the service is not doing anything. Krishna is waiting for you to increase the quality and quantity of your service, so that when you have now rendered sufficient and Krishna is sufficiently pleased by that service, then Krishna will reveal. He can perceive that intelligence is a form of guidance by the Paramatma, a plenary portion of the personality of Godhead. The presence of the Paramatma in everyone's company is not very difficult to realize, even for common men. Procedure is as follows. So sometimes you get guidance, inner guidance. And that inner guidance is coming from the Super Soul, Paramatma. One can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. So naturally, every one of us, we know we exist. I know I can tangibly feel that I am here. I'm witnessing, I'm seeing, I'm existing. He may not feel it abruptly, but by using a little intelligence, he can feel that he's not the body. He can feel that the hand, the leg, the head, the hair, and the limbs are all his bodily parts and parcel. But as such, the hand, the leg, the head, etc., cannot be identified with his self. Therefore, just by using intelligence, he can distinguish and separate his self from other things that he sees. Consider, you can see your hand, you can see your body. So I am the perceiver, perceiving the body. I can see the computer, so therefore I'm the perceiver of the computer. There is the perceiver, and there is that which is perceived. I can perceive in my inner consciousness the thoughts that are running through my mind. So people who do meditation, they can, just like perceive, let the thoughts come, thoughts go, they can perceive the thought. So you are not the thought, because otherwise you'll not be able to perceive your thinking, your thoughts. So that way you can understand, I'm separate from the mind that does the thinking, because the thoughts are coming, so I'm different from the thoughts. So this way, in a mechanical way, we can slowly understand that I'm different from the body, I'm different from the mind, I'm different from the intelligence. So the natural conclusion is that living being, either man or beast, is the seer. And he sees besides himself all other things. So there's a difference between the seer and the seen. Now, by little use of intelligence, we can also readily agree that the living being who sees the things beyond himself by ordinary vision has no power to see or move independently. All our ordinary actions and perceptions depend on various forms of energy supplied to us by nature in various combinations. Our senses of perception of action, that is to say, our five sense perception of senses of hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell, as well as our five sense of action, namely hands, legs, speech, evacuation organ, and reproductive organs, and also our three subtle senses, namely mind, intelligence, ego, 13 senses in all, are supplied to us by various arrangements of gross or subtle forms of natural energy. And it is equally evident that our objects of perception are nothing but the products of the inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by natural energy. As this conclusively proves that the ordinary living being has no independent power of perception or emotion, perception or of motion, and as we undoubtedly feel our existence being conditioned by nature's energy, we conclude that he who sees is spirit, and that the senses as well as the objects of perception are material. The spiritual quality of seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of material conditioned existence. That is the difference between spirit and matter. The point in organic development, but such arguments cannot be accepted because there is no experimental evidence that matter has anywhere produced a living entity. Trust no future, however pleasant. Idle talks regarding future development of matter into spirit are most foolish, because no matter has ever developed the power of seeing or moving in any part of the world, no matter how advanced AI is. AI, artificial intelligence, cannot be conscious. Prabhupada then continues. Therefore, it is definite that matter and spirit are two different identities. And this conclusion is arrived at by the use of intelligence. So Prabhupada is giving, how someone, especially those who are in Sankhya, this is how they would understand and try to distinguish matter and spirit. And in this way, as they apply a process, they will get more and more realization and clarity of such. Now, with a little further use of intelligence, we come to the point of accepting that things which are seen cannot be animate unless someone is the user or director of the intelligence. Intelligence gives one's direction like some high authority, and the living being cannot see or move or eat or do anything without the use of intelligence. When one fails to take advantage of intelligence, he becomes a degraded man. And so a living being is dependent on intelligence or direction of a superior being. Such intelligence is all-pervading. Every living being has his intelligence, and this intelligence being direction of some high authority is just like the direction a father gives his son. The high authority who is present and residing within every individual living being is super soul. Krishna as a super soul can also give direction. At this point in our investigation, we may consider the following question. On the one hand, we realize that all our perceptions and activities are conditioned by arrangements of material nature. Yet we also ordinarily feel and say, I am perceiving, I am doing. Therefore, we can say that our material senses of perception and action are moving because we are identifying the self with the material body. And that the superior principle of the super self is guiding and supplying us according to our desires. By taking advantage of the guidance of the super self in the form of intelligence, we can either continue to study and to put into practice our conclusion that I'm not this body, or we can choose to remain in false material identification, fancying ourselves to be the possessors and the doers. Our freedom consists in orienting our desires either towards the ignorant material misconception, or the true spiritual conception. We can easily attain the true spiritual conception by recognizing the super self, Paramatma, to be our friend and guide, and by dovetailing our intelligence with the superior intelligence of the Paramatma. So Krishna can give direction, and when he gives direction, you can misuse that direction, or you can use that direction to realize him. Prabhupada talks about, people say, I have this negative conscience. So this negative conscience from the Vedic perspective is really Krishna directing and telling you that's wrong. So people can, take that advice or not take that advice. So one can go more deeper materially into the ignorant and misconception of the truth, or one can go spiritually and understand certain experiences and analysis to go in line with the truth. And it's not blind. It's you going with some level of intelligence, some level of discriminations, then applying some level of faith. When you get higher guidance and you apply and move in the right direction, by applying the process, you can get revelation. The super self and the individual self are both spirit, and therefore the super self and the individual self are both qualitatively one and distinct from matter. But the super self and the individual self cannot be on the equal level, because the super self gives direction or supplies intelligence, and the individual self follows directions, and thus actions are performed properly. So you see, Prabhupada is giving that warning again and again. The self cannot become super self. The individual is completely dependent on the direction of the super self, because in every step in the individual self follows the direction of the super self in matter of seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling, and willing, etc. As far as common sense is concerned, we come to the conclusion that there are three identities, namely matter, spirit, and super spirit. Now, If we go to the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedic intelligence, we can further understand that there are three identities, namely matter, individual spirit, and super spirit, are dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The super self is a partial representation or plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of God. Bhagavad Gita affirms that the Supreme Personality of God dominates all over material world by his partial representation only. So the link was that I can perceive, but I get inspiration. I can use intelligence, and my intelligence is sharpened. I get direction. Consider, for example, Newton discovering the law of gravity. That is inspiration. That is coming from a higher source. So there's you who's perceiving, or let's say there's the apple that's falling from the tree. Then there's Einstein who's perceiving, who's the spirit soul. And then he's getting inspiration and guidance from some source. That's the Supreme Spirit. That Supreme Spirit is the Paramatma. That Paramatma is a partial expansion of the Supreme Personality of God. God is great, and he cannot be simply an order supplier of the individual selves. Therefore, the super self cannot be a full representation of the Supreme Self, Purushottam, the absolute personality of God. Realization of the super self by the individual self is the beginning of self-realization, and by progress of self-realization, one is able to realize the Supreme Personality of God by intelligence, by the help of authorized scriptures, and principally by the grace of the Lord. So using intelligence, guidance of the Vedas, and finally by the mercy of Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita is predominantly conception of the personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is further explanation of the science of Godhead. So if we give up our obstinacy, and pray for the mercy of the director of intelligence sitting within the same bodily tree, like a bird sitting with another bird, as explained in Upanishads, certainly the purport of the revealed information in the Vedas will become clear to our vision, and there will be no difficulty in realizing the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. So what's stopping us? Our obstinacy. We're very stubborn. So we need mercy, therefore we pray. And we see those who accept that, yes, I'm limited, I need help. And they pray to God, they pray to Krishna, please help, please guide me. So many devotees that came to Krishna consciousness, they share how, they were at a crossroad, they were frustrated. And then, they say, God, if you're out there, give me some, guidance, give me some clue. And then all of a sudden they see a Harinam party, or they meet a devotee, or they get a book, and Krishna guides them. If one is open to improving and evolving, Krishna is very happy to reveal. The intelligence, therefore, after many births of such use of intelligence, the intelligent man, therefore, after many births of such use of intelligence, surrenders himself at the lotus feet of Vasudeva, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9:7-19. So to come to Vasudeva realization, to come to understand that Vasudeva is everything, this takes lifetimes. And for somebody that has come to the conclusion, that is glorious. 36. So now the conclusion. Last two verses in concluding this chapter, Sukadeva Goswami says, Tasmat, therefore, Tasmat Sarvatmana Rajan, Hari Sarvatra Sarvada, Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha, Smartatavyo Bhagavan Rinam. O King, it is therefore essential that every human being hear about, glorify, and remember the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, always and everywhere. Beautiful verse. Therefore, concluding from the previous verses, therefore, it is essential, see, it is essential that every human being, what they do, Shrotavya, Kirtitavyasta. Hear and glorify. And by doing that, you'll remember. Smartavya. Who? Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. And where? Sarvada or Sarvatra. Always and everywhere. So very, very wonderful verse. Even though the verse is very clear, Prabhupada still is expanding. This is Prabhupada's compassion. Srila Goswami begins this verse with the word tasmat, therefore, or therefore. Because in the previous verse, he has already explained that there is no auspicious means of salvation other than the sublime process of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga process is practiced by the devotee in different methods like hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, worshipping, praying, rendering service in love, becoming friendly, and offering all that one has, all that one may possess. All 9 methods are bona fide methods, and either all of them, some of them, or even one of them can bring about the desired result for the sincere devotee. But out of all the 9 different methods, the first one, namely hearing, is the most important function in the process of Bhakti Yoga. Without hearing sufficiently, note the adjective, without hearing sufficiently. It's not just hearing, it's hearing sufficiently. And who decides sufficiently? Not you, not anyone else. Krishna. How does he know? He's their super soul. He's in every atom. He's between every atom. He knows everything. So without hearing sufficiently and properly, because Krishna knows if you're inattentive, Krishna knows if you're hearing, half-hearted, Krishna knows your intention. No one can make any progress by any other methods of practice. So our progress is dependent on hearing sufficiently and properly. Our progress in spiritual life is dependent on hearing sufficiently and properly the holy name. Power. Practically like the mercy incarnation of Krishna, Shakti Veshavata, empowered incarnation. And since it has been ascertained that the Lord is the super soul of everything, he should therefore be heard and glorified everywhere and always. This is the special duty of human beings. So wonderful. There's so much clarity in terms of what we should be doing, what is our duty, and how we should be doing it, and what we should be doing, for what we should be doing. So all the, why, what, when, how, everything is very, very clear and described. When the human beings give up the process of hearing about the all-pervading personality of Godhead, he becomes a victim of hearing rubbish transmitted by man-made machines. Prabhupada is warning us. See, hearing you go into, whether you like it or not. You got 2 ears, you're going to hear. You either hear rubbish or you hear the glories of Krishna. We have a choice. Machinery is not bad, because through machine one can take advantage of hearing about the Lord. But because machinery is used for ulterior purposes, it is creating rapid degradation in the standard of human civilization. It is said here that it is incumbent upon the human beings to hear about the Lord, and scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are made for that purpose. So why did Prabhupada give us Bhagavad Gita? Why did Prabhupada give us Srimad Bhagavatam? Not to put on the shelf, but to read, to hear, to associate with. Living beings other than human beings have no ability to hear such Vedic literatures. If human society gives itself to the process of hearing the Vedic literatures, it will not become a victim to the impious sounds vibrated by impious men who degrade the standard of total society. Living beings, human beings, are the only ones that have this opportunity. Implication: if you don't take advantage of it, then you are not a human being. So very, very clear instructions. Hearing is solidified by the process of chanting. One who has perfectly heard from the perfect source becomes convinced about the all-pervading personality of God and thus becomes enthusiastic in glorifying them. If you hear, you can speak. If you hear, you can glorify. All the great acharyas like Ramanuja, Madhva, Chaitanya, Saraswati Thakur, or even in other countries, Muhammad, Christ, and others, have all extensively glorified the Lord by chanting always and in every place. Because the Lord is all-pervading, it is essential to glorify Him always and everywhere. In the process of glorifying the Lord, there should be no restriction of time and space. That is called Sanatan Dharma or Bhagavad Dharma. Sanatan means eternal, always and everywhere. Because Bhagavad means pertaining to Bhagwan, the Lord. The Lord is the master of all time and all space, and therefore the Lord's holy name must be heard, glorified, and remembered everywhere in the world. That will bring about the desired peace and prosperity so eagerly awaited by the people of the world. The word cha includes all the remaining processes and methods of Bhakti Yoga as mentioned above. And the last verse, Pibanti ye Bhagavata Atma Shantam Katamrita Shravana Pate Puteshu Sampritam Unanti te Vishaya Vidusitasya Vidusitasayam Vrajanti Tach Charana Sharoru Hantikam. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. The suffering of human society are due to a polluted aim of life, namely lording it over material resources. The more human society engages in exploiting the underdeveloped material resources for sense gratification, the more it will be entrapped by the illusory material energy of the law. And thus the distress of the world will be intensified instead of diminished. Human necessities of life are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of food, grains, milk, fruit, wood, stone, sugar, silk, jewels, cotton, salt, water, vegetables, etc., in sufficient quantity to feed and care for human race of the world as well as the living beings on each and every planet within the universe. The supply source is complete, and only a little energy by the human being is required to get his necessities into proper channels. There is no need for machines and tools or huge steel plants for artificial creating comforts of life. Life is never made comfortable by artificial means, but by plain living and high thinking. The highest perfectional thinking for human society is suggested here by Sukadeva Goswami, namely sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. People want to control and exploit, they know this. Therefore, they steer civilization in the way that Prabhupada is mentioning with machinery and artificial lifestyle, because they know that that's the way to control people. For men in this age of Kali, when they have lost the perfect vision of life, Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada has commented on Katamrita, mentioning this verse, and has indicated Srimad Bhagavatam to be the nectarian message of the personality of Godhead. By sufficient hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the polluted aim of life, namely lording it over matter, will subside, and the people in general in all parts of the world will be able to live in a live a peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. For a pure devotee of the Lord, any topics in relation with his name, fame, qualities, and entourage, etc., are all pleasing. And because such topics have been approved by great devotees like Narada, Hanuman, Nandamaj, and other inhabitants of Vrindavan, certainly such messages are transcendental and pleasing to the heart and soul. And by the constant hearing of the messages of the Bhagavad Gita and later of Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured herein by Srila Sukadeva Goswami that he will reach the personality of Godhead and render him transcendental service in the spiritual planets of the name Goloka Vrindavan, which resemble a huge lotus flower. Thus, by the process of Bhakti Yoga, directly accepted as suggested in this verse, by sufficient, note the key word again, sufficient hearing of the transcendental message of the Lord, material contamination is directly eliminated without one's attempting to contemplate the impersonal Virat conception of the Lord. And by practicing Bhakti Yoga, if the former is not purified from material contamination, he must be a pseudo-devotee. For such an imposter, there is no remedy for being freed from material entanglement. If you are not truthful and pretending, that means engaging sense gratification and pretending to be a devotee. There is no hope. You will be entangled. There is no remedy. So, Prabhupada is trying to convince us of embracing the truth, embracing hearing, sufficient hearing and chanting, Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, and then following the process of Bhakti Yoga, developing our relation with the Supreme Lord, surrendering to his lotus feet. And in this way, the process will purify and eliminate all the contamination that is there directly and return us back to the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second canto, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord in the Heart. Vantrat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Nitai, Gopramananda, Hari Hari. If there's any comments or questions, please type that in the chat next week. We will start with chapter 3, entitled Pure Devotional Service, the Change of Heart. There was a comment by Shamananda Prabhu. Thanks for sharing info on the chakras and those layers. What are the odds of one escaping this? Practically impossible. By the mercy of Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, they've given us a shortcut method to perform the great escape. Yes. We should have a title, The Great Escape. I think there's a movie or something, The Great Escape. It's like, the great escape of someone caught in prison, and, they expertly conjured, devised the whole strategy how to escape, and then they call it The Great Escape. So we have The Great Escape. The Great Simple Escape. 1, 2, 3. Just chant the holy name. All right, thank you very much. If there's no comments or questions, we shall end there. I'll just give a few more seconds in case anyone is typing. So, thanks for all the effort and time for all this. Really amazing points about the Paramatma hearing sufficiently, etc. We see even in the lives of worldly persons like great composers and even current theaters, many share that they had divine inspiration to create their works. We understand that guidance comes from the super soul in the heart. Yes. And what's also interesting, at one point I was studying scientific inventions, like the force, like the law of gravity, all these different inventions, or quantum inventions, different discoveries. What's interesting is they were like, for example, say quantum physics. Now, it's not only that one scientist was able to discover quantum physics. At a certain point in time, there were multiple scientists that had the same inspiration and in different parts of the world, and they wrote about it. So that means there's like steered, guided inspiration that inventors, scientists, they get. And this was on multiple fronts, that multiple scientists would get different inspirations at the same time on the same topic, which also implies that there's some internal guidance, which tells you that there's somebody there, something there. They may call it inspiration, but what is that inspiration? Where is it coming from? And Prabhupada's making it very clear. That's the Supreme Spirit. And if you look at the word inspiration, in spirit, when you in spirit, you'll be inspired, you'll be getting inspiration. And I normally make the point, people want motivation. But instead of motivation, if you simply place yourself in spiritual life, which means something that's natural, that's in it, it's your nature. When you put yourself in spiritual life, you'll be automatically inspired. That inspiration comes from the inside. Continue practicing. You don't need motivation from the external source to motivate your spiritual practice. When you practice Krishna consciousness nicely, you are automatically inspired from within. Thank you very much for those points. Jagannath Prabhu, thank you very much for your feedback. Mother Les says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thanks for the Krishna Katha, very powerful class, reinforces and also practically relatable, because I have no ideas how things are working, example, chakras, etc. Don't worry, I'm also in the same boat. But following the simple process, you can see guidance, you can feel third eye opening, becoming very prominent, very nice. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice, if these realizations are there, third eye opening, I can see things and perceptions, but that's the beauty of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means I surrender to Krishna, and whatever Krishna wants to reveal and guide and give me, that's what I accept. Just like a servant surrenders to the master. Whatever facility the master wants to give the servant for service, he accepts and he serves, right? And therefore, therefore, every devotee has a certain service that Krishna wants him to engage in, and that devotee will get the facility, the realizations, the perception, the psychic, both gross and subtle facilities for him to do the service. So we simply accept, okay, whatever Krishna wants to give me, that's what he wants to give me, and then I can practically apply that in service. Because it's all related to Krishna, we ultimately get the desired result of going back home, back to God. Thank you very much for everyone's association. Next week, we will continue with Canto 2, Chapter 3 on the slide, not Canto 3. Chapter 2, Canto 2, Chapter 3. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gopramanande Hari Hari.